Hey, John, how's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm great.
Excellent, excellent. You cold? Got a hat on, I see.
No, I could take it off. Let's see.
No, it's fine. I'm not. It's not going to be a video thing, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
So, how's it going?
It's going great. I had such a great time. I just got back from Glasgow on Monday, and I had an amazing week. It was like one of the best weeks, probably like amplified it in greatness because of what I've done for the last 2 years, which is like basically nothing. But to be in an amazing city and going to seeing our movie in a theater filled with sold out, full of people, and communicating on a Q&A and seeing other movies and talking to buyers and making deals and it was
nice.
It was incredible. It was incredible. And thanks so much for your lovely review of the movie.
Yeah, no problem. I liked it, so yeah, it was an easy one to write. So yeah, it's all good. Right. So obviously, 2 years ago, you were at the Glasgow Film Festival with James versus Future Self. It was I think that was towards the end of its sort of festival run, wasn't it? At that point, you looked a bit world weary at that point. I think you'd been 6 months on the road promoting it. So that was the end of February, start of March 2020. And then here we are now. Ashgrove has just premiered at the Glasgow Film Festival this year. 2-year gap in between where basically very little has been going on. So what was your timeline between that and actually rocking up at Glasgow for the premiere on the 3rd of March?
Yeah, 2 years exactly between my two Glasgow trips. When we were there 2 years ago, we had hatched the idea for Ashgrove a few months earlier. In fact, we came up with the idea while we were driving in Canada from one film festival to another. It was a 3-hour drive between Calgary and Edmonton, and we said, Jeremy, my co-writer and director, and I, we were like, what do we want to do for our next movie? And we started to come up with crank out ideas, and by the end of that 3-hour ride, we sort of figured out what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it. So by the time we were in Glasgow 2 years ago, we had our most of our cast. We had the film was kind of ready to go. When I came back from Glasgow in March, the world shut down. In fact, I remember being in the airport leaving Glasgow, and there were these signs. It was first week of March, so there were signs saying use hand sanitizer, and we were thinking, that's weird. Why would we do that? But there, and then so we got back and we were locked down. And, like everybody else, I've spent those first 6 months in my home with my family and writing and making great coffee and baking bread. And I learned how to play the ukulele. I ordered a ukulele and figured out how to play it, which is in the movie.
Yeah, saw that. Yep.
and then September rolled around, September 2020, and in Canada, film productions just were starting to creep back into action, and we thought we were already planning on shooting this movie in a one remote location with very few people. I think we had 18 people, cast and crew included, and we just bubbled and basically quarantined ourselves on this farm for a few weeks and made the film there.
Excellent. So, as I say, it premiered at the Film Festival on the 3rd of March. So how was that experience for you? Obviously, I think this is probably your first premiere outside of sort of North America, Canada, US sort of thing. So what was it like actually bringing it to an audience that wasn't sort of native to your own country? Was it easy? Was there a certain amount of trepidation involved with it?
No trepidation whatsoever, although you make a good point. This is my 7th film as a writer, producer, actor, and it's the first one that had its world premiere outside of Canada. So I never thought about that, John. Thanks for bringing that to my attention.
That's okay.
It was a dream come true. I mean, we made the film as an experiment. I can get more into it, but we made it in an unconventional way that none of us had done before. And all the way through, our motto was, let's give ourselves permission to fail. Let's give ourselves permission. Let's not see this necessarily as a movie that anyone will ever see. And so when you free yourself of those kinds of thoughts and restrictions and guideposts, you can really explore some interesting things. So the fact that the film came off the way that it did, and that Glasgow invited us there for a world premiere. Glasgow is, I mean, in Canada and around the world, it's widely considered like a top tier festival. We were so excited, and I never once thought about, oh, this is not a Canadian audience. The film is, sure, it's Canadian because there's canoes in it, and it happens, you know, out in the farm, but we like to think of it as a universal kind of story, and I think that's one of the reasons why people are responding to it. So going to Glasgow to show it to great audiences at the Glasgow Film Festival, so we knew we were going to have a good house and lovely people who work at the festival, and it was not. I was so excited, and I was not disappointed by the experience.
Excellent. Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So, going into the film itself, the very opening scene of the film basically gives you the whole sort of background. It builds the world, if you like. It's a radio interview with Jennifer. How important was it to get the sort of world building done as quickly as possible and to get that out of the way? Was that a conscious decision to have that at the start rather than drip feeding it, or? No,
it wasn't. That was a late addition in the editing process. Originally, we wanted to not have any exposition or explanation as to the world, and let our audience sort of figure it out as they went along. But what we discovered when we were editing the film and showing it to people was that there's already so much in the movie that plays as mystery, as a riddle, as a puzzle, that the audience really needed a very clear, firm grounding as far as the backstory of what's happening on planet Earth and why are we showing these people's experience of it. And so we realized that we needed to solve that problem. And so the first versions of it, we had like scroll text on the screen explaining, and it just felt too academic and false and kind of expositional. And then we came up with this idea of a radio interview where you're hiding the backstory inside questions. And so we also saw it as an opportunity to explore the character of Jennifer Ashgrove in the way that she answers questions. What you're really learning is who this woman is and what her position is emotionally at the beginning of the movie, while hiding information about the water crisis and the state of the world. So anytime that you can hide exposition inside character development, that's I forget, one of the great screenwriting academics wrote it, and there might have been McKee or Save the Cat. One of these famous screenwriting books, talks about using exposition, hiding it inside character development. So that's what we tried to do.
It was excellent. It was very well done, and like you say, you could tell by the way that she was answering the questions, the pauses when they were talking about the strain in her marriage and things like that, how it affected her and all that. It was very clever. Obviously, there's a water pandemic that is the background to the story, and it's just you don't really go into any depth about how that happened or anything like that. Now, you used a similar device in a different way in your previous film when you talked about time travel, and it was just time travels. It works. It happens. It messes you up, that kind of thing. It just keeps you going. I take it that was deliberate as well, because you're wanting to get into the character drama rather than having to constantly explain the science or the world around it. I take it that's what that was, yeah?
Yeah, very much so. And I credit Jeremy, my co-writer and director of the film, Jeremy Lalonde, with that, because like we did with the time travel movie 2 years ago, we did a ton of research. I did so much research. I spoke to water scientists. I spoke to chemists. I spoke to memory specialists about some of the memory issues in the film. Talked to a lot of scientists, and then Jeremy and I constructed very elaborate backstory for what's happening. So the science of this water crisis, we are very clear on it. Jeremy and I could bore you to tears about what is biochemically happening right now in this movie with water in the human body, and I actually think it's really fascinating. Like I love what we've come up with, and so once you have all of that information and that knowledge and that data inside your writer brains, then you have to figure out, well, how much of it is necessary to tell a compelling story, how much of it is too much that will distract or bore your audience. And part of so the skill is really just trying to find just the right amount of that information to convey so that it doesn't become cloying, versus not having enough. So, it's funny because a lot of the critics and the interviews and the reviews talk about this as a water pandemic. We refer to it as a water pandemic in the movie, but everyone assumes that it means that something's happened to the world's water supply. But in fact, John, the world's water supply has remained the same. It's our bodies in the film that have mutated and changed, so that the viral impact on the body is that it's pulling water apart as we consume it into hydrogen and oxygen, and the hydrogen is making us toxic. And so it's our bodies that are turning water against us, and that was an important metaphor for us. I love this idea that the very thing that we need to survive, water, becomes the very thing that is killing us. And, in a movie about love and toxicity and infidelity, and human emotional neediness, all of those things, I like the way that plays against the backdrop of this thing that we need biochemically that is turned on us,
Nice, that's excellent. You mentioned about the writing process with yourself and Jeremy. Obviously, Amanda was involved in the writing in this as well. Did she come on at a later stage? Because obviously you said earlier you had the initial idea on your journey across the vasts of Canada between yourself and Jeremy. So when did Amanda come in, and what was her contribution to the process?
Yeah, she came on right away. So it was a 3-hour car ride where Jeremy, where we hatched the basic idea and decided we wanted to center it around a female, woman, a doctor, a world-leading water scientist. And when we arrived at our destination 3 hours later, the first thing we did was Jeremy called Amanda and said, we'd like to offer you this part and invite you into the writing process and have this be a true collaboration. And she immediately said yes. She loved the experimental nature of it, of building the world with us and building the characters. And from there, we built the characters together, individually. All the actors in the film actually designed their own characters with Jeremy and I and Amanda. And so Amanda was instrumental. But we in the nature of this experimental way of making this movie and making it differently than we've made our previous films, we didn't have a tight, lean script that we worked on for months and months and months as we usually do. Jeremy and I are fastidious rewriters, and we work our scripts to the bone. This one, we wanted to keep it open for changes along the way. And so we shot the movie chronologically. And in many cases, we were able to keep secrets from the actors up until those secrets are revealed on camera. So a lot of the stuff you see in the movie where characters are deducing things or solving a puzzle or having revelations, those are actually happening to the actor as well as the characters. So it was a very, very free form experience of how to write a film and make a film.
I thought it was quite interesting the way that the characters, especially yourself and Amanda, interacted, because there was obviously an obvious tension there right from the very start, which was sort of foreshadowed with the radio interview. Now, how did was that just all done through the rehearsal process between yourself and Amanda to get this sort of interaction going between you? It's almost like a love-hate relationship, because there's obviously underlying tensions there that they're trying to gloss over. And I think at one point when they're away for a weekend, they say, right, they set the rules. They're not going to do certain things to each other in order to try and keep it civil and keep things going. I take it that just all evolved as part of the process, yeah?
Yeah, very much so. And then when you say rehearsal process, we never once rehearsed a single scene before we were shooting. And well, instead,
wow.
I know, it's great. What we did instead was we spent 1 year, 1 year backstorying the characters and the relationships. So by the time we showed up to shoot this movie, Amanda and Jeremy and I knew in excruciating detail who these people were, how they grew up, what their family lives were like, how they met, how their relationship evolved, where they'd been together, what they ate together, what their sex life was like. We just backstoried them like crazy. And so we had this very full picture of who they were and what their relationship was by the time we arrived on set, and we just rolled into it with all of that knowledge behind us. And what it allowed us to do was really feel the sort of freedom to play with each other, knowing we had a shared experience. And oftentimes on camera, you know, Amanda will improvise a detail about our past, and I will either know about it because we talked about it, you know, 2 weeks earlier or a month or 6 months earlier, or I'll roll with it as a, you know, as part of the improvisation of some of those scenes. So an unusual rehearsal period that mostly involved journaling and sharing information about who we were and where we come from.
The relationship between yourself and Amanda, obviously Amanda is this top scientist, Jennifer, who is working on the crisis to do with water, and to be generous to yourself, you're like almost like a stay-at-home husband as part of this. You can see a difference between the two characters just in the way that they're presented to the world. Like Amanda is very businesslike in her portrayal of Jennifer. She's always very well presented. She's almost like the spokesperson for the effort to try and work out what was going on. But you are at home now. I take it that was all deliberate, and the fact that the differences between yourself, like most of the time you're wearing like sort of check shirts and very casual, and you almost look kind of beaten down at times. I mean, I take it that was all part of your process of getting into the character. Yeah,
absolutely. We looked very carefully at what would it be like if you were you know, self-employed or unemployed or unmotivated, and your partner was literally the most important person, you know, in the world, to put it, you know, extremely. And what does that do to your self-esteem? What does it do to your sense of being, of your feeling of your place in the world? And that became, you know, the essential conflict between these two characters was, how do you bridge that divide? And what does it mean? And it's really interesting because we came up with this dynamic and this story months before COVID was even a word that we knew.
Yeah.
And so suddenly, while we're shooting the movie, there are individuals on planet Earth who are racing to create a vaccine, who are in labs 24/7, who feel the weight of the world literally on their shoulders. And so in a sense, our movie is kind of about those people, I guess, and the people that they're married to or live with or have relationships with, and how does it affect them on a you know, micro level. So we didn't realize that was the story we were developing, but it changed contextually very much when COVID hit.
Nice one. You mentioned earlier, obviously, about learning how to play the ukulele in your downtime, which is actually quite a useful way to spend some of your time. I take it that was incorporated later on into the script and the film itself. Were you worried at all about actually playing a musical instrument live on a film set?
A little bit. I mean, I think I was lucky because the character was also just learning the instrument, so a lot of room for me to. I mean, I taught myself that instrument, you know, between March and June of 2020 when we were all in our homes. I don't have any technique. I never learned technique. I'm figuring it out by ear. So I thought it would be a fun way to incorporate a little bit of what was actually happening in my world and my life into the movie. And the song in the movie is improvised. You know, the idea is let's make up a song. But to be fair, our brilliant composer, Ian Lefebvre, he actually wrote the music for that song and taught it to me painstakingly and not easily. Poor guy, over Zoom a week before I went up to shoot it. And so the music had been pre-written, but the lyrics we came up with on the day. Technically, we wrote the lyrics about an hour and a half before the scene, but it was all pretty real what you're seeing in that scene.
I noticed that as well as obviously you playing the ukulele, there was elements of ukulele playing in the composition that Ian had actually added to it. Was that inspired by yourself, or was it to try and mask some of your playing to sort of show you up a wee bit, maybe?
No, man, no. He's a pretty brilliant guy. He did the music as well for our last film 2 years ago, the one you referenced, James versus His Future Self. And in fact, he was nominated for 2 Canadian Academy Awards for his music on that film. I just want to plug him because he's such a genius. So he composed all the music for Ashgrove, and utilizing elements from what we'd filmed and what we'd shot. I think he was very inspired by what we did on the day and what we showed him. When we got the footage to him, he was really excited to put music to it. And as a result, as you saw, he wrote a handful of original songs that are all in the movie. And I think ukulele is a piece of it.
You've obviously mentioned that you've been working with Jeremy on a couple of films now, and obviously Ian as well. Is this part of a sort of a collective, a troupe, if you like, that you like working with the same people because of the shorthand nature of that? How does that all work? Is that something that you like doing?
Yeah, that's exactly it, John. Is that I've made my films so far have all been with the same two directors. So I've got Jeremy on the one hand, and I've got another director that I've made a bunch of films with. And I hope that I continue to make films with these people. I like finding a collaboration that works. It doesn't always work, as you know. But with Jeremy, we get it. We get each other. We have a similar sense of humor, and yet we're very different as far as the way that we approach material, which complements each other in a way. I mean, he's really good at pulling me back, and I'm really good at pushing him a little bit forward and challenging him. And we kind of have this lovely relationship. And I enjoy working with him. I think life is too short to work with assholes. And if you have a chance to work with your friends and your friends are talented and you get along, why wouldn't you,
Mm-hmm. So on your website, the Banana Moon Sky Productions website, you are listed as producer and not just someone who talks to the producer in order to get things done. You basically do a bit of everything. Is that through necessity, or is that through control because you like to get things done?
A little bit of both. The necessity part, I realized early on in my career that nobody was more motivated to get these movies up and running than I was. I mean, it started off as actor is my number one thing. Like, acting is my great joy in life. And if I could just act every day for the rest of my life, I would be like a kid on the playground. I would just be joyous all the time. But unfortunately, actors, they have to wait for that phone to ring for their agent to get them a job or an audition or an offer. And I just don't like waiting around. So I started writing about 20 years ago, just started writing as a way of creating stories for myself, thinking, if I can write these stories, maybe I can get them made. And then the next step after that was realizing that you're also then at the mercy of producers and money people to get these stories up. And I just couldn't wait around. So I started producing out of necessity to get the stories told. And I realized, as much as I hate producing, I figured out a way to do it that I'm pretty good at. So, and that's not me being, I don't think that's me being cocky. It's really hard to get a movie made. I mean, it's not just one miracle to get a movie made. It's a succession of miracles that are all on top of each other that have to happen in succession to get a movie made. And, I've done a few of them now. So I hope that I get to a point in my career where other producers, this actually just happened to me in the fall. Another producer optioned one of my scripts and said, we want to make this movie right now, exactly as you wrote it, with you in the lead and hiring your favorite director. And I said, so I get all the great things that I want to do out of this. And I don't have to do the hard part, which is finding the money and hiring the crew and firing people and insurance and banks and documents and lawyers. See, I'm going to put your listeners to sleep with all of that.
No, not at all. No.
Producing is agonizing. And so I do it because I want to get these films made.
Has it been even more of a struggle over the last 2 years with the fact that everything's been locked down? I take it that's not helped with trying to get financing for films and things like that.
You'd think that it would be, but miraculously, my career, the last year and a half has been the best year and a half for me career-wise. I shot this movie, as you know, a year and a half ago, and now I'm traveling the world with it. And then I just finished shooting this film in January that I just told you about as a comedy. And then I've already got the funding raised for my next film, which we're shooting in the summer. So 3 movies in a year and a half or 2 years, that's That is by far my best pace so far. It usually takes me, 3 to 5 years to get a single movie made. And so I've been doing great. Maybe it's just because we all had more time to like focus. I took 4 or 5 months off from everything when it happened, when March 2020 happened. I said, I'm not going to work. I'm not going to do anything. Didn't lift a finger, didn't write a word of screenplay, didn't make a single work call. And then, by about May or June, I got itchy and I had to get, and I jumped back in with like full force. It was like that those 3 or 4 months recharged the battery, motivational battery. And I just was like an Energizer bunny. I don't know if that's a commercial in the UK.
Oh yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. I'm intrigued by the title of your production company. Banana Moon Sky Productions. What does it actually mean? I know Banana Moon is like the shape of the moon, but why did you choose that? Is it something quite personal?
Very personal.
All right, you're not allowed to say that.
No, I can tell you. My daughter, who's 12 now, for the first time, your child strings words together in a kind of sentence. It's a big moment. It's like up until that point, it's just daddy, milk, water. The first time they string them together, it's a kind of a pivotal moment. And for me, the first time I remember my daughter stringing words together was she's holding her little hand in my hand, and we stepped outside, and she looked up at the sky, and her little eyes lit up. She must have been 2, and she pointed at the sky, and she said, "Dada, banana moon sky." And was, trying to say that the moon looked like a banana in the sky, and I got tears in my eyes, and it was right at that time, 10 years ago, that I was that I had to name my production company because I had just found it, and I thought, and it was, that's it. It's Banana Moon Sky. So
that's lovely. If it was my daughter, it would just be called No, because that's basically everything that she said to me for the first couple of years. Yeah. No. So, going back to the film itself, the title of the film, Ashgrove. Obviously it's the character's surname, but has it also got something to do with the old Welsh folk song as well? Does it get anything to do with that at all? Because I didn't know. I had a wee look online, and there's obviously this old folk song called the Ashgrove, and there's various forms of lyrics that are associated with it. It's sort of evolved over, it's been like 2 centuries or something that's been on the go. And one of the sets of lyrics talks about going back, like reminiscence of a loved one, and there's another set of lyrics that talks about someone going and basically going to a happy place in their mind, going back and reminiscing about a place and things like that, which seemed to obviously fit very well with the film. Was that anything to do with it, or is that just a happy coincidence?
A very happy coincidence. And John, you're the first person to mention this to me. I got to tell you, I'm going to get off, when we get off this call, the first thing I'm going to do is Google those because I had no idea. Ashgrove was literally the property that we filmed the movie on, that farmhouse and the acreage belongs to Jeremy Lalonde, my co-writer director. That's his wife's family farm property. It's been in their family for over a century, and it's a heritage site. And things aren't that old here in Canada. I just came from Scotland, where every turn it's like structure from the 16th century, but it's like one of the oldest things in Canada. And we shot the whole movie on that property. And when you open the gates, as you'll see in the opening of the movie, you open the gates and there's a sign that says Ashgrove. Yeah. I don't know the origin of why the property was called Ashgrove, but that's the name of the property. So we decided to retroactively name the character that, and also the film. No knowledge that there's a Welsh folk song, a traditional Welsh folk song called Ashgrove. I will look that up.
Oh, well, that's good. So I'll just finish up now as well. Obviously, film's premiered. It's going to be playing at the Canadian Film Festival on the 26th of this month, I believe. And what's happening after that? What's the sort of future for Ashgrove? Have you made, are you in talks with distribution people, that kind of thing, to get something done with it?
Yes, we actually will. It'll announce tomorrow, but there's I guess by the time your podcast is out, it'll be public information. There's an American film festival called CineQuest. That'll be our US premiere in April. And then we'll continue to play film festivals throughout the year into the fall. In Canada, we've already sold the movie to a company here that's going to put it in theaters, which I didn't
Wow.
know that happened anymore. So the movie will have a theatrical release, and then it's already been sold to some TV broadcasters here. So Canada, it'll have a good, healthy life. And one of the outcomes of our triumphant Glasgow premiere was we have a bunch of offers on the table for UK distribution and international sales. Nothing to announce to you yet, but you know,
of course. Yeah.
it looks like the movie will find some kind of an audience, which is, as I said, when we set out to make it, we did not know if that was the case. We were giving ourselves an out, and but it's very exciting that people are going to get to see the movie. So there will be a UK release at some point this year, and I'll let you know about it. You can let it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll put the word out there again about it, which is always very easy to do for something that I really enjoyed and something that comes along and you think, it's something a wee bit different. It's something very interesting. So I think that's it from myself. I've kind of run out of stupid questions to ask you. So, so thank you very much, Jonas. It was absolutely excellent.
Yeah, my pleasure, John. It was a real joy talking to you, and thanks again for all the attention and the love that you're raining down on our movie. I'm greatly appreciative.
Yep, no problem. That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
All right, man.